Here with us now is Republican strategist Alex Zdan. Great to see you again. And Democratic strategist Mike Nellis. Great to see you as well. Thanks for joining us, gentlemen.
Good to be here.
And Alex, we'll start with you. The outcome of all this is going to be months away, right? But with Trudeau flying to Lago and Mexico's president talking earlier this week with Mr. Trump, too, it appears Trump is seeming to get some negotiating leverage over both neighbors. Talk about the end goal here, and will this all work?
Well, this is Mar-a-Lago diplomacy. This is President Trump hitting the ground running like he's able to do as someone who's been in the office before, the first president to serve non-consecutive terms since Grover Cleveland. And here's what President Trump knows. He's dealt with Trudeau before. He knows Trudeau is weak at home. Conservatives are threatening to have a landslide in forthcoming elections in Canada. This is a prime moment to do a deal with Justin Trudeau, and that is why Prime Minister Trudeau came to Mar-a-Lago. The U.S. trade deficit with Canada is unacceptable. The one with Mexico is bigger, but we still have a trade deficit with Canada. Justin Trudeau may want to make a deal, and President Trump obviously knows how to bring him to the table.
Yeah, well, look, whether you agree or disagree with what the former president is doing, he's been around the block. He knows the buttons to push and levers to pull in Washington, or in this case, Florida. Mike, moving on to you. Trudeau has said that Trump's tariffs on Canada would harm Americans. Many economists believe this would impact directly on things like cars, smartphones, lumber, fruits, vegetables, you name it, even the price of a gallon of gas for your car. Canada supplies 60% crude oil in the United States. What's your reaction to all this?
Yeah, I think, look, if you go back and look at the election from 3.5 weeks ago, the American people are frustrated with Joe Biden and the Democratic Party for not doing enough on inflation, not doing enough to keep costs low. And now Donald Trump's trying to get us mixed up into a tariff war with Canada and Mexico and China. That's going to be disastrous. There's a ton of available evidence out there that suggests that if Donald Trump goes through with his tariff threats here, the average American is going to spend an extra $2,500 to $2,600 on groceries, gas, appliances like refrigerators if they have to replace something like that. It's going to be a huge issue. I think what the American people voted for a few weeks ago, amongst other things, was to get prices down. And Donald Trump isn't doing anything to get prices down. What he is doing is making himself the center of an international crisis that could really hurt people down the stretch.
And consistently, the polling leading up to the election, what was issue number one? The economy. Number two, immigration. And we're seeing how much the two are tied together here. Mike, the Associated Press reports Trump's tariffs in his first term never fully delivered on his promised factory jobs, nor did they, though, provoke the avalanche of inflation that critics feared. What do you expect the bottom line change for Americans to be?
Well, I think these tariffs that he's proposing right now are much more extreme than the one he did in his first term. But Trump has a history of making big, bold claims about what the things he's going to do are going to build and grow for the economy, that they're going to create jobs, that they're going to bring manufacturing back. He has no record of actually delivering on them. And I think continuing to put the American people in a position where they're going to pay the cost of these tariffs, of the moves that he's trying to make that put him at the eye of the storm internationally, get him that nice photo with Justin Trudeau, is going to be problematic. People don't want to pay more. Right now, the American people are crying out for relief after a global inflationary crisis that, frankly, my party didn't do enough of a job trying to cool off and support people, and we've got to figure out how we talk about that. But adding fuel to that fire is only going to make things worse.
And we can't forget, Alex, that Mexico is one of our largest trading partners, with vehicles at the top of the list. So are Trump's tariff threats part of an overall negotiation plan? Is this somewhat deterrence, or is this actually going to be followed through with?
No, the key word in what we've been talking about this morning is proposed. They're proposed tariffs. They haven't taken effect yet, and we don't know what the final number will be. Look, Canada and Mexico, we both have a trade deficit with. Our number one trade deficit, though, is with China, and we've got to take a very hard line on China. I would advocate separating the Canada and Mexico situation from the China situation, because China is a currency manipulator. China is a copyright and patent thief. We need to deal with China very, very firmly. All options need to Trump, the master negotiator. This is phase one.
Well, you bring up a great point in the drug crisis here, how that it's all tied together too. Alex, China is speaking out against Trump's pledge to slap additional tariffs on Chinese goods because of the opioid crisis here. Talk about Trump's argument of these tariffs on China and curbing that crisis.
Well, first of all, I think if the Chinese Communist Party is complaining, we're doing something right. China, like I said, is a currency manipulator, a currency devaluator. They're also our biggest trade, economic, and potentially military adversary. President Trump knows, and President Trump got a mandate from the American people to deal very firmly with China. And when you look at the national security and the foreign policy staff he's assembling for when he takes office in January, China is top of mind, and we are not going to be cowed by the power of the Chinese economy. The American economy is still number one. We're still the biggest in the world. We have the ability to make our desires known and to enforce red lines when it comes to trade and devaluation from China. And I think President Trump is coming into power and going to do exactly that.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for arguing your sides here at News Nation. We don't like to sow division. We just like our viewers to be able to make up their own minds and hear both sides of the aisle speak. So thanks for joining us.